everybody, and welcome to Teensy Vintage. This is Teresa. Today we are working in my large Dylusions art journal on the very first art journal page of 2025 for me. I decided to use this die cut of a deer, and I believe it's from Stamperia, and I wanted to make a pretty detailed background, and I'm picking out what I think are primary colors, or as close as I can get to primary colors with Distress Oxide inks. So I've got mustard seed, which is, a pretty basic yellow. I think Festive berries for red, and then blueprint sketch for the blue. And I'm going to use these little pads to apply these colors through a stencil, I believe from the Crafter's Workshop. And as always, the description has a list of the supplies I use in this video. And if you have questions, just shoot me a question in the comments section. I'm happy to answer. Okay, so we're going to start with a layer of yellow, and I'm going to clean as I go because I want the stencil not to transfer the other colors while I'm using them. So now we're going to do some red, and I'm really loading up the sponge applicator with the ink, trying to get as much as I can on there, and then just going over the stencil. Pretty basic stuff here, and just applying it around the page. Eventually I will do a little blending, but for now I'm just putting down blocks of color. And we'll get some blue ink put on there as well. I'm going to wipe off the red ink first. Obviously you don't have to, but for me I wanted it to be a pretty clean application. So I am wiping off my stencil between colors. And the blue goes on very nicely. There's a little bit of blending there with the yellow and the red. I wanted my greens, orange, and purples to come through naturally, so to speak, when I ran up against the other colors. And it kind of works, and it kind of doesn't. And that, I think, is just these particular colors. Like I said, these are not necessarily primary colors. They're kind of close, but they've got their own um, qualities, and they don't necessarily make a bright green or a bright orange or a nice purple. Um, and that's okay. So now I'm going back with the yellow because I want to fill in some of this white space, and I feel like the yellow will be the best one to use here. And I am deliberately going over some of the spots with the blue and the red on it to try and get this mixed color that I'm looking for, but it didn't really work out that way. And that's okay. So I'm going to clean off my stencil here. So now I've got a pretty vibrant background, a lot of movement, and I'm now going to take the yellow ink with a little bit of water and kind of go around the page in some of these places where there's a lot of white showing. Now, the inks do start to blend here, and the blue and the yellow together make this kind of an olivey green. There's also a little bit of purple. Basically, the nice thing about this application of liquid, ink is to kind of grunge up this very crisp looking page. The stencil's very crisp. And I just wanted to take some water and give it some watercolory goodness. Some smudging, you know, um, just kind of making it a little grungy and imperfect. I'm also going to make sure that the page is nice and dry for the next few steps. It's always good to dry your page in between applications of whatever media it is you're using. All right, so now the page is pretty dry, and I'm going to put the deer right smack in the middle of this one. And before I do that, there are white edges on this die cut. So I'm going to go in with some Vintage Photo, which is one of my favorite brown inks, and just kind of cover up the sides so it's not this stark white. And we'll use a little art glitter glue to adhere the deer to the page. Adhere the deer! That rhymes. I am easily entertained. What can I say? All right, so I'm using a paper towel to press down so I don't smudge anything, and we're going to put a weight on top so that this deer will stick. His little nose didn't want to stick very well, so I'm going to try putting some pressure on his nose. And it's looking pretty good. Okay, now I've pulled out some supplies, some new supplies. Shout out to my brother-in-law. Thanks for getting these. I'm using some Art Graf watercolor tablets, I guess. They're called Tailor's chalk because they look like Tailor's chalk. But they're basically a little brick of watercolor, and I'm using it to create something for the deer to stand on. 'Cause remember, we don't want our deer to just float around. And also doing a little bit of shadowing, under the deer's legs and his belly, and giving him a little bit of outline just to add some definition and a little bit of depth to the image. Yeah, I'm just using a very small brush and some water to do this. Really enjoying this Art Graph watercolor. It's a nice quality. It's very easy to use. Now I've got a Posca paint pen, and I just want to add some more detail. So I'm going to put some little dots going around the top side of this deer. Just a little visual interest. And a few more near his face. And I'm not sure what else I want to do, and I'm like thinking, and I'm like, wait a minute. How about some stamps? So instead of more mark making with the pen, we're going to get out a nice grungy stamp. This is another Christmas gift. Y'all, I got spoiled this year. Really, this is so nice. This is from Tim Holtz Stampers Anonymous, and it's just some nice grungy polka dots, which mimic the circle stencil we used earlier. And the black ink contrasts very nicely with the white space left by the stencil. And I'm just using some good old Archival ink in jet black. And I just really love how these polka dots turned out. And I'm just putting them where they feel right. Adding a little more texture to the ground that the deer is standing on. And yeah. Now I just need to find a sentiment. I've got my little box here of statements and text I cut out from old books. And this one says, stood frozen. I don't know, it just appealed to me. So I'm going to zhuzh it with a little leftover red ink and also give a little color to our deer. And that's it. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.